Daniel Evans was no stranger to sacrifice. At 35, he carried himself with the quiet strength of a man who had weathered storms, both seen and unseen. His days began before dawn, packing lunches, ironing little dresses, brushing tangles out of his 7-year-old daughter Lily's hair, and rushing her to school before heading to his job at a small architecture firm. His nights ended with bedtime stories and whispered prayers at her bedside. Life as a single dad was exhausting, but Daniel never complained. He had learned to live without grand gestures, without someone waiting for him when he came home. Love, as far as he was concerned, was something he had buried years ago when his wife passed. His heart now belonged entirely to Lily, and that was enough. At least, it had been, until the phone call that would change everything. It was a Thursday evening when Clara's name flashed across his phone screen. Clara Bennett wasn't just an old friend. She had been his wife's best friend, and over the years, she had become part of Daniel's extended family. Clara was gentle, thoughtful, and one of the few people Daniel trusted enough to leave Lily with. But when he answered the call, her voice was unlike he had ever heard it before, shaky, uncertain, almost afraid. "Daniel," she said, her tone trembling, I need a huge favor." He paused, instantly alert. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "I'm fine. It's just, well," her breath caught, as though she was forcing herself to say the words. "My ex, Andrew, he's getting married this weekend." Daniel's chest tightened. He knew Andrew. Everyone did. The man had once seemed charming, successful, the kind of husband every woman would dream of. But Daniel had seen the cracks before Clara did. He had watched his friend's heart shatter when Andrew left her for someone else, leaving her drowning in betrayal. Clara had survived, but she was never quite the same afterward. "I got the invitation," she continued, almost whispering. "And I told myself I wouldn't go. But the truth is, I need to go. I need to prove to myself that he doesn't control me anymore." Daniel frowned. "Clara, you don't owe him that. You don't need to put yourself through this." "I know," she said quickly. "But it's not about him. It's about me. I don't want to look weak. I don't want people whispering behind my back, saying, 'Oh, poor Clara, still can't move on.'" He could hear the tears she was holding back, and something in him softened. "So," she said after a pause, "will you come with me? As my date, just so I don't have to walk in there alone." Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. Weddings weren't exactly his idea of a good time. He hadn't been to one since his own, and the thought of walking into a room filled with romance, promises, and champagne laughter only reminded him of what he had lost. But when he pictured Clara, standing alone in that hall, surrounded by curious eyes and smug smiles, his decision was already made. "Yes," he said simply. "I'll go with you." Her sigh of relief was so deep he almost smiled. "Thank you, Daniel. You have no idea how much this means to me." The night of the wedding arrived faster than he expected. Daniel stood in front of his mirror, adjusting the knot of his tie. He hadn't worn a suit in years, but Lily, sitting cross-legged on his bed, squealed with delight. "Daddy, you look like a prince," she said, clapping her little hands. Daniel chuckled, leaning down to kiss her forehead. "And you, princess, are staying with Mrs. Collins tonight, remember. Be good, okay?" She nodded solemnly, but her curious eyes sparkled. "Are you going to dance with Miss Clara?" His throat tightened, though he hid it behind a smile. "We'll see." When he arrived at Clara's house to pick her up, the sight of her stopped him cold. She wore a deep emerald gown that hugged her frame gracefully, her hair curled in soft waves that framed her face. She looked nervous, clutching a small silver clutch like a lifeline, but to Daniel, she looked radiant. You look beautiful," he said before he could stop himself. Her cheeks flushed. "Thank you. And you, wow, Lily was right, you really do clean up like a prince." They both laughed, the tension easing slightly as he offered her his arm. "Shall we?" The wedding was held in an extravagant hotel ballroom, its chandeliers dripping light like liquid gold. The room buzzed with chatter and laughter, but the moment Clara walked in with Daniel by her side, heads turned. Whispers followed, like the rustle of leaves in a storm. "Is that Clara?" She brought someone. Who is he? Clara straightened her back, her hand gripping Daniel's arm tighter. He leaned down, his voice low and reassuring. Ignore them. They don't matter. Her ex, Andrew, stood at the front near the altar, his tuxedo perfectly tailored, his smile polished. But when his eyes landed on Clara, no, on the man beside her, his expression faltered. Just for a second. But Daniel saw it. Good, he thought. Let him know she's not alone. The ceremony passed, but the reception was where the real tension brewed. Guests approached with forced smiles, offering Clara awkward greetings and darting curious glances at Daniel. He played his role perfectly, pulling out her chair, pouring her water, leaning close to whisper jokes that made her giggle in spite of herself. Every time she laughed, Andrew's jaw seemed to tighten a little more. At one point, when the music swelled and couples began filling the dance floor, Daniel extended his hand with a small smile. Dance with me. Clara hesitated, her eyes flickering toward Andrew, who was watching from across the room. Then she looked back at Daniel, his steady gaze calming her. Yes. As they swayed under the soft glow of the chandeliers, Clara let out a shaky breath. I can't believe I'm here. A year ago, I thought I'd never smile again. And now you're laughing at my terrible jokes, Daniel said gently. Her lips curved into a real smile this time. You have no idea how much that means. But just when Clara felt steady again, something shifted. Across the room, the bride, Anna, kept glancing at her. Not with anger, not with jealousy, but with something strange. Guilt. Clara tried to ignore it, but when she excused herself to step outside for some fresh air, Anna followed. Clara, Anna called softly, her voice trembling. Clara froze, turning slowly. What do you want? The bride's eyes filled with tears. There's something you need to know about why your marriage ended. The night air outside the ballroom was crisp, carrying the faint scent of roses from the garden and the muffled hum of music spilling out through the doors. Clara wrapped her arms around herself, drawing in a shaky breath. She had told herself she was strong enough to face this night, but now her ex-husband's new bride was standing before her, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Anna's wedding dress shimmered under the lantern lights, but her expression was anything but radiant. Her lips trembled as she spoke. Clara, she whispered again, her voice thick with emotion, please, hear me out. I can't walk down this path with him without telling you the truth. Clara's chest tightened. She didn't want this. She didn't want a confession from the woman who had replaced her. She wanted to walk away, to return to Daniel's steady presence inside, to forget this conversation before it began. But something in Anna's tone, something desperate, rooted her to the spot. What truth? Clara managed, her voice clipped. Anna's gaze dropped, as though the weight of her own guilt was crushing her. Andrew told me you didn't love him anymore. That you were cold, distant, obsessed with your own life. He painted you as the villain, Clara. And I believed him. I believed every word. Clara felt her knees weaken, her stomach twisting. She remembered the nights she had begged Andrew to talk, the way he had brushed her off with excuses and late nights at the office. She remembered how she had poured her heart into handwritten letters, begging him not to give up on their marriage. Letters he had never answered. I wrote to him, Clara whispered, her voice breaking. I tried. I begged him to stay, to work things out. I thought. Her throat closed up, but the tears she had fought all night spilled freely now. I thought I wasn't enough. Anna shook her head violently, her own tears streaming down her cheeks. I found them. The letters. Hidden in a drawer in his office. He never showed them to me, never even told me about them. He lied to us both. He told me he was already free, that you were the one who wanted out. But the truth is, he was already planning this wedding before your divorce was even final. The words hit Clara like a physical blow. For years, she had carried the invisible scars of abandonment, believing she had failed as a wife, that she hadn't been good enough to hold her husband's love. And now, standing beneath the lantern lights, she realized she had been living under the shadow of a lie. Her breathing grew shallow, her hands trembling. She felt the world tilt beneath her, until a familiar hand landed gently on her shoulder. Clara, Daniel's voice cut softly through the storm inside her. He had followed her, sensing her distress the moment she slipped outside. His steady presence grounded her, his eyes full of concern as he took in her tear-streaked face. She turned to him, her lips trembling. "Daniel, all this time, I thought I wasn't enough." He stepped closer, brushing one of her tears away with the pad of his thumb. His voice was firm, steady, a rock against the tide of her pain. "You were more than enough. You gave your heart, and he chose to throw it away. That's on him, not you." Anna looked at Daniel, then back at Clara, her own face twisted with regret. "I'm sorry. I know this doesn't fix anything, but I couldn't marry him without telling you the truth. You deserve to know." Clara nodded faintly, her voice trembling. "Thank you. She stopped, unable to continue. Anna hesitated, then turned back toward the ballroom, leaving Clara and Daniel alone under the night sky. For a long moment, Clara stood in silence, tears running silently down her cheeks. Daniel didn't rush her, didn't try to force words into the space between them. He simply stood there, his hand still warm against hers, anchoring her. Finally, she whispered, "Do you know what it's like to carry someone else's lies for years? To believe you weren't worth loving?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "I know what it's like to lose love, to question everything you thought you were. When Lily's mom died, I asked myself 1,000 times if I could have done something differently, if I could have saved her. The truth is, some things are beyond us. But what I do know is this: you're stronger than you realize. And you deserve better than someone who would rather deceive than fight for you." Clara's chest rose and fell as she stared at him. There was no pity in his eyes, only truth. Solid, unwavering truth. And for the first time in years, she felt the chains of her past loosen, link by link. "I wasted so much of myself on him," she murmured. Daniel shook his head. "You didn't waste yourself. You loved fully. That's never wasted. The mistake was his, not yours." She met his gaze then, and something passed between them, an unspoken understanding, a recognition of two souls who had both been broken but not destroyed. The music inside swelled louder, spilling into the night as laughter echoed faintly from the reception. Clara wiped her cheeks, exhaling shakily. "I should feel bitter, but right now, I just feel free." Daniel smiled softly, his thumb still brushing her hand. Freedom is the first step to healing. For a long moment, they simply stood there, gazing at each other in the quiet. Clara realized then that the night wasn't about her ex-husband, or the lies he had spun, or even the bride's confession. It was about this moment, about realizing she wasn't broken beyond repair, and that someone saw her, truly saw her, for who she was. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. "Come on, let's go back inside, not for them, for you. To show yourself that you can walk back in there with your head high." Clara nodded, her lips curving into a trembling smile. "With you by my side, I think I can." When they returned to the ballroom, Clara felt lighter. The whispers no longer stung, the curious glances no longer mattered. Andrew's smug smile faltered again when he saw her laughing at something Daniel whispered in her ear. And for once, Clara didn't care what her ex thought. Later, when Daniel pulled her onto the dance floor again, she didn't hesitate. They swayed slowly, her head resting against his shoulder, his steady heartbeat grounding her. "You know," Clara whispered, her voice laced with wonder, "I thought coming here would break me. But maybe, it's the thing that's setting me free." Daniel pressed his cheek lightly against her hair. "Sometimes, endings are just disguised beginnings." Clara closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like the broken ex-wife, the woman left behind. She felt like a woman stepping into a new chapter, her hand safely in the grasp of someone who would never let go. And as she danced under the glow of the chandeliers, her tears no longer carried the weight of sorrow. They carried hope.